One question, two answers, three takeaways. This is The Process with Brad Borland and Mike McKinnis. All right, guys, today we're going to talk about training after 40, 45, 50, and beyond, but on the subject of fatigue, and I'll need to do some explaining. We train through our teenage years, 20s. We go heavy. We do all the kinds of crazy stuff we regret, stuff we overtrain. We do all, everything in between. But as we get older, of course, we need to change things. And that doesn't mean to do step aerobics or go into a walking class. We can still weight train. We can still get in the weight room, get after it, having some intense workouts. But we need to change some things. And I think a lot of people, myself included, make mistakes. So I know, Mike, that you mentioned before you've played sports, high school, college, and I know that you probably have your fair share of stories about squatting, bench pressing, deadlifting,
Quite
all
a few.
kinds of crazy stuff, like
Yeah.
weight, the amount of weight, the reps, all the kind, everything. And those are good times. And I have a similar in principle kind of situation with marathon workouts, high volume, all kinds of reps, experimenting with all kinds of different training techniques and things like that. And I think that when you're teenage and 20s, your teenage years and through your 20s, I think it's important to experiment with a lot of those things, right? So gives you a good foundation. You learn, you make a lot of mistakes, you correct a lot of things. But as we get older, I wanted to just talk a little bit about sort of the central nervous system and fatigue, because I think that's something that people overlook. Because a lot of people try to do those workouts they did when they were 18. They try to do them when they were 40, 45, and then they hurt themselves. It doesn't feel good. They dread it, et cetera, et cetera. And then they quit because they said, well, that's how it worked out. And I can't work out like that anymore, so I quit. But I think there's a lot more to it than that. I think, you know, the we let's face it, I hate to admit it, but my body can't take the stress it could when it was 20.
No doubt.
Yeah. And lifestyle changes, right? Jobs, families, children, other social obligations. So those things take its toll. So I just love it. And Mike, you could chime in whenever you want, but I know for myself that I love it too much to quit.
Yeah. Well, it's in your blood. You you,
Right.
you can't quit. The thing to remember is as we get older, you just have to adjust the way you train. I mean, and you were talking about earlier about the crazy stuff we used to do. I mean, you know, I'm living proof of how that can catch up to you. Because really up until I was 40, squats were always that was my exercise. Even though I'm a taller guy, squats were that was it for me. And it was nothing to go, like I would finish a squat workout with 550 pounds for 8 reps, pretty much
Wow.
every leg day. And you know what? The funny thing is you say, wow. And like and back then I was like, I felt, oh, hey, look how strong I am. But you know what? It catches up to you.
Mhm.
And, you could do that in your 20s and 30s, but I did it up until I was 40 and that was too old. It's too old to be doing that. So, I had back surgery this year. I've got some hip issues and things like that. But the thing is, you've got to adjust the way you train the older you get. Ego wise, it's hard to accept. But if you want to do this the rest of your life, you have to make that change.
Yeah, and I wanted to kind of reiterate the point, we could, let's see, anybody could be doing squats, deadlifts, whatever. They could be doing it wrong, or they could be doing it too heavy, too frequent, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, that's gonna put wear and tear on the joints. And just regular lifting, I say, I tell people all the time, it's not my age, it's the mileage. I've been
That's
training
right.
since I was 14,
Yep.
and I've stayed relatively injury free, some nicks and scrapes here and there, but just the mileage itself, it's a lot of wear and tear. And
Yeah.
I had to come to a moment when I was in my mid 30s and said, I've got to switch things up. If I want to continue to do this, I'm not quitting, but I got to switch things up. So I had to start looking at not only different exercises, or different rep ranges, volume, et cetera, et cetera. I actually had to look at like the fatigue I was putting on my body,
Yeah.
because I had to look at it more as a big picture thing versus in the weeds. So I had to look at it like, okay, how many days a week am I training? how many hours a day, how many hours a week, um, what is my rest periods like, how much weight am I, what, all the every single different factor
Yeah.
as it relates to fatigue. And what I found out in my mid 30s is I was just exhausting myself.
Hmm.
And no matter what I was doing, it could be squats, it could be this or that. So I had to like look at it from that 30,000 foot view and go, okay, I need to back off on my stress. And eventually through my 40s, it evolved more into a much lower volume than I was doing. I would say I'm a low to moderate volume lifter these days.
Right.
And then higher reps. And this is me. I mean, I know everybody's different, but I just kind of set the goal of my rep range from now on is going to be 10 to 20 reps for everything.
Hmm.
That's not an easy 10 to 20. That's a hard 10 to 20.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah. And really be a little bit nicer to myself. Like I was training 6 days a week and stuff. And I said, you know what? If I need to take a second day off during the week, in the middle of the week, if I'm just exhausted, it had to be a good reason, right?
Yeah.
Not just because I'm lazy or this or that. But I say, hey, I need to be good to myself. Like if I had a workout and I killed it and it was great, the next day if I'm just exhausted, it's like, okay, dude, you're okay. You can take a day off. It's okay.
But you know what? And I've been reading a lot about this in the last year or so, and that feeling of exhaustion that you just mentioned,
Hmm.
that's your body telling you,
Right.
stay away from the gym today. And look, you and I both we were brought up the same way in the gym. We were 6 days a week,
Hmm.
high volume, just all out. But as you get older, like I was reading something just the other day, really once you get in your mid 40s and beyond, which, I'm 54 now, you really should only train 3 to 4 days a week the
Hmm.
older you get. Now it's intense. Like these are hard sessions. You're not just
Right.
going in there just, walking around talking to people. But your body needs way more rest at this age than it did when you were in your
Hmm.
20s and even 30s. So I think a lot of people overlook the importance of the rest and recovery the older we get.
Yeah, and I think too, something else that I kind of stumbled upon during all this, trying to change things up is when I was still trying to get that 18-year-old workout, 18-year-old me workout in at 40 or, 35 years old, whatever, I started enjoying it less.
Yeah.
And I started kind of reading, I always love to delve, go deep into subject and how overtraining and fatigue and overuse can really it changes your hormone levels. It can increases anxiety, and you can get insomnia. There's all kinds of different things. You lose your appetite, or at least I did. And so I kind of made this really personal rule with myself. I said, look, if I am really overdone, if I am over fatigued and overtrained, I'm going to take some days off. Okay, cool. So here's my rule. I will only return to the gym when I am excited and motivated to return, not because I'm obligated to return, like I
Right.
did if I was 18.
Right. Right.
Now it's more like because I know there's like a hormonal disruption. There's like my system's just out of whack. My nervous system's shot. Too much fatigue. Central nervous system shot. So then I would it was more of a feeling like an emotional state. I was like, okay, once I get back into a positive emotional state and I want to get back at the gym, I want to go, and I miss it, then I'll allow myself to get back into the gym. So, like I said before, it's almost like this little new era of being kind to myself, a little
Right.
kinder.
No, I think that's great. And the thing you kind of hit on is like you don't want it to feel like a job. This is something that we love to do,
Hmm.
and you want to enjoy going to the gym. Like obviously, it's good for you. It keeps you in shape. You're healthier in general, but it should be an enjoyable process. And even after all these years of doing this, I genuinely get excited when I'm going to the gym.
Hmm.
And now in the last year, I guess I've learned that recovery is really important. And on the days that if I feel extra sore or like you said, exhausted feeling, I'll take that day off. And again, it helps your body recover, but it helps your mind recover
Hmm.
too. So the next day, especially if I miss a day or take an extra day off, that next day I cannot wait to get to the gym.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's not only a physical reset, it's a mental reset too.
Absolutely. Yeah, and yeah, I just wanted to reiterate a point I made a little bit earlier. Like my workouts are still intense. They're still, I go to close to failure or at failure on every set, and but I love doing that. I love putting in the hard work, and I never have, you hear sometimes people say like, well, I'm going to take it easy today. I can't do that. And so, but with regulating my rest better, regulating my fatigue better, and managing all that better, I my motivation stays high. I never shortchange a workout.
Yeah.
I still get after it. I mean, and people say like, well, you're doing higher reps. It's probably easier. No, well, try to
No,
do, 3 or 4 sets of squats at 16 reps, and that's
exactly.
going to be tough.
Give it a shot and let me
Yeah,
know.
give it. Yeah, let me know later. But sometimes higher reps are tougher, right? Because you can kind of squeeze out more
That's
extra
right.
reps, instead of doing a solid set of 6 or something like that. But anyways,
Right.
um, yeah, because I know we've alluded to this before because you've had to almost required to change your workouts due to your back surgery recently and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah. You really have to. And once you accept the fact that you're not 25 anymore and you've got to be smarter about it, I'm telling you, I'm having some of the best workouts of my life now. At 54, like I'm still
Hmm.
getting after it, but I'm allowing myself to have those days off. And you mentioned something a second ago about, you know, uh, being tired or whatever. And the way I look at this, you were talking about still working out intensely at the gym. The way I look at this, I would rather take a day off from the gym than go to the gym and take a day off.
Right.
You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yes.
my mentality and yours too is when we walk in those doors, man, it's time to get busy.
Right.
Let's get after it. I'm going to give
Hmm.
everything I got. And if I know I can't do that, I'm not going to go. I don't want to go in there and waste my time. I want to go in there and be able
Right.
to do a hard workout.
No, I know exactly what you mean because I have, and it's not very many times, but I have gone to the gym, warmed up, try to, get the wheels moving, and in my gut, I felt like I need to go home right now.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not because it's either 100% or zero.
That's right.
It's not going to be, I'm going to take it easy today. But I think that's another subject.
Right. No, and I think that's important, man. And I think I've always said, listen to your body.
Mm,
Your body will tell you what it needs. And if you need an extra day off, look, here's the thing. I work out 4 days a week now, but I have 7 days to get those 4 workouts in.
hmm.
So
Hmm.
let's say I'm going to the gym this evening, and it's like the example you just said. I'm just not feeling it. I'm still kind of worn out from yesterday's workout. I'll take an extra day and just add a day later in the week because you've got 7 days to get 4 workouts in. It
Right.
doesn't matter which 4 days you get them in, as long as you
Hmm.
get them all in.
Yeah, and I guess the biggest point of this episode is just, it doesn't matter if you're 40, 45, 50 plus. There's still ways to manage your fatigue and your intensity and all the different factors of reps and volume and rest periods and everything. And you could still have a great, great workout, enjoy it, be motivated. Uh, I don't think you need to hang up the lifting belt, so to speak.
Right,
But
right.
my three takeaways: be honest with yourself. I had to do it in my 30s. I had to kind of lay down my arms and say, okay, what do I need to do? Time for change. And then, back off on the volume a little bit and experiment with different things. Maybe you do need to go higher rep. Maybe you need to go a little bit lower volume. Or maybe what you do, Mike, with more of the heavy duty Mike Menzer kind of stuff, like really low volume, high intensity. Experiment and be honest with yourself with all that stuff. Document, take a journal. Hey, how did today's workout feel? Was it better? Give it a few weeks, that kind of thing. So,
Right.
and then the third thing is you got to get to a point where you're enjoying it again. I would never want to get to a state where I hated going to the gym or working out or wherever I am. I'm going to change things until it's enjoyable again. I'm going to keep changing them. And I mean, I'm in my 50s now, and I'm going to keep changing them. I know that from now on. I'm going to keep changing them
Yep.
because I'm not going to do my 50-year-old workout at 60. I know that. So I have to keep that in mind and be honest. Well, with that said, guys, that's another episode in the can. Don't forget to subscribe, and we are out.